The rain fell in sheets of silver across the alien jungle, and Sergeant Marcus Cole wiped the water from his visor as he walked the perimeter fence of Earth's forward base 17. He had been stationed on Sigma Vega 4 for 3 months now, and he still could not get used to the strangeness of this world. The trees here were not really trees at all, but massive fungal towers that stretched hundreds of feet into the purple sky. And the air always smelled like copper and whetstone. Marcus was a simple man from a small town in Montana, and sometimes he wondered how he had ended up so far from everything he knew. The Galactic Council had sent humanity here as part of some deal with the Dominion of Aligned Species, the massive alliance of alien civilizations that controlled this part of the galaxy. Humanity was new to the stars, and the Dominion had agreed to sponsor their expansion in exchange for certain services. Nobody talked about what those services really meant, but Marcus had seen enough to understand that humans were considered useful but disposable by their so-called allies. Commander Elena Vasquez ran a tight operation at the base, and she had warned everyone about the native species on this planet. The Kathrani were the apex predators of Sigma Vega 4, and they were unlike anything Marcus had ever imagined. They stood 8 feet tall on average, with bodies like massive lions covered in scales instead of fur. Their claws were black as obsidian and could cut through metal, and their manes glowed with bioluminescent light that shifted colors based on their mood. The Dominion had classified them as primitives, dangerous animals that needed to be controlled or eliminated. Marcus had never seen one up close, and he hoped to keep it that way. The rain began to ease as he reached the eastern section of the fence, where the jungle pressed close against the energy barrier. Something caught his eye among the fallen fungal debris, a shape that did not belong to the natural chaos of the forest floor. He stopped and squinted through the mist, and his heart began to beat faster when he realized what he was looking at. It was a Kathrani cub, no larger than a German shepherd, lying in the wreckage of what appeared to be some kind of stone structure. The Dominion pacification forces had been through this area last week, burning and destroying anything they considered a threat to colonial operations. Marcus approached slowly, keeping his hand near his sidearm but not drawing it. The cub was alive but barely moving, and its mane flickered with weak orange light, like a candle about to go out. One of its legs was twisted at a terrible angle, clearly broken, and its ribs showed through its scaled hide. It was starving. Marcus crouched down a few feet away and looked into the cub's eyes. They were amber-colored and filled with an intelligence that surprised him. And even in its suffering, the creature did not beg or whimper. There was pride in those eyes, a dignity that refused to break even when everything else had. He reached for his radio and called it in, and within 20 minutes, a small group had gathered at his location. Commander Vasquez stood with her arms crossed, her face unreadable behind her tactical visor. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the base xenobiologist, scanned the cub with her medical equipment and shook her head slowly. But it was Rextal who spoke first, the Dominion liaison officer who had been assigned to oversee their operations. Rextal was an insectoid creature with compound eyes and clicking mandibles, and he looked at the cub the way someone might look at garbage on the street. "Leave it," Rextal said, his translator rendering his clicks into flat English. "The Kathrani abandoned defective young, and it is their way. And this one was cast out for good reason. It is injured," Dr. Tanaka said quietly. "Not defective. Same thing," Rextal replied with a dismissive wave of his segmented arm. "The creature is worthless to its kind and worthless to us, and leaving it is the natural order." Marcus looked at the cub again and felt something twist in his chest. He thought about his grandfather back in Montana, a man who had spent his life rescuing stray dogs and nursing injured birds back to health. His grandfather used to say that you could judge the soul of a person by how they treated those who could offer them nothing in return. Marcus reached into his belt pouch and pulled out his ration pack. It contained a protein bar and some nutrient paste. Standard military food that tasted like cardboard but kept soldiers alive. He opened the nutrient paste and squeezed some onto his palm, then slowly extended his hand toward the cub. The creature flinched at first, its weak mane flickering with pale blue fear. But hunger won over caution. It stretched its neck forward and began to eat from Marcus's hand. And its rough tongue scraped against his skin as it consumed every bit of the paste behind him. Rextal made a sound that might have been laughter. Humans, the Dominion officer said, his compound eyes glittering with condescension. So sentimental and so foolish. And you waste resources on genetic refuse. The other Dominion observers who had gathered began to laugh as well. A chorus of clicking and chittering that echoed through the misty jungle. Commander Vasquez said nothing, but her jaw was tight beneath her visor. Dr. Tanaka watched Marcus with an expression he could not quite read. Marcus ignored them all and squeezed out the rest of the nutrient paste. The cub ate until there was nothing left, and then it looked up at him with those amber eyes. And something passed between them that Marcus could not explain. "What are you going to do?" Commander Vasquez asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Leave it here to die slowly instead of quickly." Marcus stood up and looked at his commanding officer. "No, ma'am," he said. "I am going to carry it back to base, and Dr. Tanaka is going to fix its leg. And we are going to feed it until it is strong enough to survive on its own." Rextal's laughter stopped abruptly. "That is against protocol," he hissed. "The Dominion does not permit interference with native wildlife pacification programs. The Dominion," Marcus said without looking at him, "can file a complaint." He bent down and carefully lifted the cub in his arms, mindful of its broken leg. The creature was lighter than he expected, all bones and desperation. And it made a soft chirping sound as he cradled it against his chest. Its mane pulsed with a new color, a gentle orange that felt like warmth and hope. Commander Vasquez was silent for a long moment, and Marcus could feel her weighing the political consequences against something else, something harder to define. Finally, she turned and began walking back toward the base. "Dr. Tanaka," she said over her shoulder, "prep the xenobiology lab for a patient." Rextal sputtered in outrage, but nobody was listening to him anymore. Marcus carried the cub through the alien jungle and toward the base, and he did not know that his simple act of kindness had just set in motion events that would change the fate of two species forever. The Dominion officers watched him go, still laughing at the foolish human and his worthless rescue. They would not be laughing for long. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus Cole carried the injured Kathrani cub through the gates of Forward Base 17. And in that time, everything had changed. The cub had a name now. They called her Ember, because of the way her mane pulsed with soft orange light whenever she felt safe and content. Dr. Yuki Tanaka had worked through the night after. Marcus brought Ember in, setting the broken leg with a splint made from lightweight alloy and synthesizing a nutrient formula from local proteins that the cub could digest. It had been touch and go for the first few days, and there were moments when Tanaka thought they would lose her, but Ember was a fighter, and she clung to life with a stubbornness that impressed everyone who watched her recovery. Marcus spent every off-duty hour in the xenobiology lab, sitting beside the makeshift bed they had constructed for the cubby, talked to her in soft tones, even though he knew she could not understand his words. And he fed her by hand until she was strong enough to eat on her own. Commander Vasquez had been furious at first, calling Marcus into her office to explain exactly what he thought he was doing by bringing an alien predator into a military installation. Had stood at attention and listened to her list every regulation he had violated and every diplomatic incident he might have caused. But when she finished, she did not order him to remove the cub. Instead, she dismissed him with a warning to keep the creature contained and out of sight. Marcus understood what she was really saying by the second week, Ember could walk on her healing leg, and she began to follow Marcus around the base like a shadow. She waited outside his quarters in the morning and accompanied him to the mess hall and sat beside him while he and the other soldiers watched with a mixture of amusement and fascination. And soon everyone on the base knew about the sergeant and his alien cat. Some of them started bringing scraps of food for Ember, sneaking bits of protein from their ration packs when they thought nobody was looking. The cub seemed to remember each act of kindness, and her mane would glow in greeting whenever she saw someone who had fed her. Rextal was not pleased. Dominion Liaison had filed 17 formal complaints with the base commander and had sent numerous reports to his superiors about the humans and their inappropriate attachment to native wildlife. He cornered Marcus one evening near the supply depot, his compound eyes reflecting the artificial lights of the base. "You have made a mistake," Rextal said, his mandibles clicking with each word. "A very serious mistake." Marcus looked at the alien officer and waited for him to continue. "You have imprinted the creature on yourself," Rextal explained. "You have created a dependent, a thing that cannot survive without you. And when its own kind discovers what you have done, they will come for it. And what will happen then?" Marcus asked. Rextal made that clicking sound that passed for laughter among his species. "They will kill it for its weakness," he said with obvious satisfaction. "And they will probably kill you as well. And that is the way of predator species, Sergeant. And sentiment has no place in the natural order." Marcus looked down at Ember, who sat at his feet with her mane glowing steady orange. "Maybe," he said quietly. "Or maybe you do not understand predators as well as you think you do." Rexdale's eyes flickered with something that might have been confusion or anger. And then he turned and walked away without another word. Dr. Tanaka found Marcus later that night in the xenobiology lab, sitting with Ember while the cub slept. The doctor pulled up a chair and sat down beside him, and for a while neither of them spoke. "I have been studying their communication," Tanaka finally said. "The Kathrani, I mean." Marcus looked at her with interest. "They use scent as much as sound," she continued. "They can read chemical signatures, the way we read facial expressions. And they pass information through the air itself." "What kind of information?" Marcus asked. "Everything," Tanaka replied. "Emotions and intentions and memories and relationships. And it is incredibly complex, and we are only beginning to understand it." She paused and looked at Ember with an expression of scientific wonder. "When you feed her and care for her and protect her, you are not just building a bond with her," Tanaka said. "You are writing a story in chemicals that anyone of her species can read." Marcus thought about that for a long moment. "What does the story say?" he asked Tanaka. Smiled in the dim light of the lab. "It says that you are someone worth trusting," she said. "It says that humans are different from what her people have seen before, outside the base, deep in the fungal forests of Sigma Vega 4. Something was stirring the Kathrani, were apex predators with territories that spanned hundreds of miles. And they knew everything that happened in their domain. They had watched the sky demons arrive and build their structures of metal and light. They had watched the Dominion forces burn their sacred places and scatter their people, and now they were receiving new information carried on the wind. Itself, chemical messages drifted through the jungle from the direction of the human base, and the Pride matriarch Shalvera inhaled them with growing interest. The story they told was impossible and confusing and intriguing all at once. Her lost niece, the cub of her fallen sister, was alive and healing and safe, and she was bonded to one of the off-worlders, not through force or captivity, but through something the Kathrani valued above all else: protection of the vulnerable, care for the weak. Shalvera's war leader, Krathmer, wanted to dismiss it as a trick or a trap, but the chemical signatures could not lie somewhere in that metal structure. A human was demonstrating honor that the Kathrani had never witnessed from any species beyond their own world. The Pride matriarch looked toward the distant glow of the base lights visible above the fungal canopy. "We will watch," she said to her gathered warriors, "and we will wait. And we will learn what manner of creatures these humans truly are." Back at the base, Marcus scratched behind Ember's ears and watched her mane pulse with contentment. He did not know that he was being studied. He did not know that his simple acts of compassion were rewriting everything the Kathrani believed about the beings from beyond their sky. He only knew that he had made a promise to a scared and hungry creature, and he intended to keep it. That was enough for now. The scent of honor deep in the fungal forests of Sigma Vega 4, where the purple light of the twin suns barely reached the ground. The Kathrani pride had gathered in the ancient hollow they called the Speaking Place. 40 warriors stood in a circle around their matriarch, each one a mountain of scaled muscle and razor claws, their bioluminescent manes casting shifting patterns of color. Across the cavern wall, Shalvara the Duskmaned sat upon the stone of her ancestors and listened to the wind. The chemical messages had grown stronger over the past weeks, and now they painted a picture so detailed that she could almost see the events unfolding in the human compound. Her niece Ember was not just alive, she was thriving. The cubs' scent signature spoke of healing bones and growing strength, of regular feeding and gentle handling, of warmth and safety in a place that should have meant only death. And woven through it all was the chemical identity of the human who had made it possible. A Krother paced before the assembled warriors, his mane blazing red with barely contained aggression. He was the largest of the Pride's fighters, a veteran of 100 territorial battles, and he had led the defense against the Dominion forces when they first arrived to claim this world. "We cannot trust them," he growled, his voice echoing through the cavern. "All off-worlders are the same, and they come with fire and weapons and promises, and they take everything and leave nothing but ash." Several of the younger warriors rumbled their agreement, their manes flickering in shades of crimson and orange. They had all lost family to the Dominion's pacification campaigns. They had all watched their sacred groves burn and their hunting grounds turn to wasteland. The sky demons destroyed the Temple of First Light, Krathmer continued. They killed Ember's mother and scattered our people like prey animals. And now one of them keeps our cub as a pet, and you want us to believe this is something other than cruelty wearing a mask. Shalvara let him speak, watching the reactions of her warriors with ancient eyes that had seen more than any of them could imagine. When Krathmer finally fell silent, she rose from her stone, and the entire assembly went still. "You speak of what you have seen," she said, her voice like distant thunder, "and I do not dismiss your pain or your wisdom. War leader." She began to walk slowly around the circle, meeting the eyes of each warrior in turn. "But the scent does not lie," she continued. "It cannot lie, and this is the gift our ancestors gave us. And this is why we have survived when other species fell to deception and betrayal." She stopped before a young warrior named Thresh, barely past her first hunt, who bore scars from a Dominion energy weapon across her flank. "Tell me what the wind carries," Shalvara commanded. Thresh closed her eyes and breathed deeply, reading the chemical story that drifted through the cavern's ventilation. "The cub knows safety," Thresh said slowly. "True safety, and not the false calm before an attack. And she knows fullness of belly and warmth of companionship. And the human." Shalvara prompted. Thresh was silent for a long moment, her mane shifting through colors as she processed the complex information. "The human carries no scent of malice," she finally said, and her voice held confusion and wonder in equal measure. "No hunger for dominance and no pleasure in control. And he smells of something I do not have words for." "I do," Shalvera said. She returned to her stone and faced her warriors with her mane glowing steady gold. He smells of what our mothers taught us to value above strength and territory and victory, she said. He smells of protection given freely to one who cannot protect herself, Krathmer's mane flickered uncertainly. You speak of the old way, he said. I speak of the truth, Shalvera replied. The Dominion came to our world and saw us as primitives to be controlled and resources to be harvested. And they burned and killed without hesitation because they saw nothing in us worth respecting. She looked toward the cavern entrance, toward the distant glow of the human base visible as the faintest shimmer against the night sky. But these humans found a starving cub and fed her, she said. They found a broken leg and healed it. And they found a creature that could offer them nothing, and they gave her everything. It could still be a trap, Krathmer insisted, though his voice held less certainty now. Then we will discover that truth for ourselves. Shalvera decided. She raised her voice so that it filled the cavern and echoed off the ancient stones. The pride moves at dawn, she announced. We go to the human compound, and we see with our own eyes what manner of creatures they are. And if they are enemies like the rest? A warrior called out. Shalvera's mane shifted to the deep crimson of decision, and her claws extended with a sound like knives being drawn. Then we will do what we have always done to those who threaten our young, she said. But I do not believe we will find enemies, warriors. And my bones tell me we will find something far more valuable. What? Thresh asked. Shalvera looked at the young warrior, and for the first time in many seasons, she allowed herself to feel something like hope. Allies, she said. The pride began to prepare for the journey, checking their claws and stretching muscles that would carry them miles through the fungal forest. Krathmer approached Shalvera privately, his mane now showing the softer colors of a warrior seeking understanding rather than argument. You truly believe these humans are different? He asked Shal. Vera considered the question carefully before answering. I believe that a man who feeds a starving cub when everyone tells him to let it die is not the same as a soldier who burns temples and scatters families, she said. And I believe we owe it to ourselves and to Ember to discover which kind of beings have come to our world. And if you are wrong, Krathmer pressed. Shalvera placed one massive paw on her war leader's shoulder. Then I will be the first to tear out his throat, she said. But I do not think I am wrong, old friend. And I think we are about to witness something that has never happened before in the history of our people. By the time the first sun began to lighten the purple sky, the pride was moving. 40 Kathrani warriors flowed through the fungal forest like shadows made solid. Their manes dimmed to near invisibility as they traveled. At their head walked Shalvera, following the scent trail that would lead her to her niece and to the human who had saved her. Behind her, the most dangerous predators on Sigma Vega 4 moved toward Earth's base with neither war in their hearts nor peace. They carried only questions, and they intended to find answers. The siege that wasn't. Alarm shattered the quiet of the early morning at exactly 0547 hours. And Sergeant Marcus Cole went from deep sleep to full alert in the span of a heartbeat. Red lights flashed through his quarters, and the emergency klaxon screamed its warning as he pulled on his boots and grabbed his sidearm from the bedside table. Ember was already at his door, her mane blazing brilliant gold and her body trembling with an energy he had never seen from her before. She was not afraid, she was excited. Marcus ran through the corridors of the base with Ember loping beside him, and everywhere he looked he saw soldiers rushing to defensive positions with weapons ready. Commander Vasquez's voice crackled over the base intercom with orders to secure the perimeter and prepare for possible hostile contact. When Marcus reached the eastern gate, he understood why the mist that always clung to the jungle in the early morning had begun to glow with bioluminescent light. And through that ethereal haze, he could see shapes emerging from the fungal forest, crinodynes of them, They moved out of the tree line with a terrible grace, their massive bodies flowing like liquid shadow despite their size. And their combined manes created an aurora of shifting colors that painted the mist in shades of crimson and gold and deep. Threatening purple Marcus had never seen anything so beautiful or so terrifying in his entire life. Commander Vasquez appeared beside him, her face pale but her voice steady as she ordered the base defenses to full power energy. Barriers hummed to life along the perimeter, and soldiers took up positions behind fortified emplacements with plasma rifles aimed at the approaching creatures. They have never come this close before, Vasquez said quietly. Not since we established the base. Rextel came running from the direction of the Dominion quarters, his compound eyes wide with what could only be panic. I told you, the liaison officer shrieked. I warned you this would happen. And the primitives have come for their worthless cub, and they will kill us all. He spun toward the landing pad where the Dominion shuttle sat waiting. I am leaving immediately, he announced. And I suggest any humans who value their lives do the same. He scuttled toward the shuttle with several other Dominion officers following close behind. And within moments, the craft's engines were whining to life. Nobody tried to stop the Marcus, watched the Kathrani approach, and felt something strange stirring in his chest. Ember had pressed against his leg and was calling out in harmonic tones he had never heard before. Sounds that seemed to resonate in the air itself and carry meaning beyond what human ears could interpret. One of the approaching Kathrani, the largest of them all with a mane that seemed to contain every color at once, stopped just beyond the perimeter barrier and raised her head. The rest of the pride halted behind her in perfect synchronization, weapons hot. Vasquez ordered through gritted teeth. But nobody fires unless I give the command. Marcus looked at his commanding officer and then back at the Kathrani, and he made a decision that would either save them all or get him killed. He stepped away from the defensive line and began walking toward the gate. Sergeant Cole, Vasquez shouted. Stand down and return to your position immediately. He did not stop him or bounded after him. And when she reached his side, she did something that made everyone watching hold their breath. She positioned herself between Marcus and the pride. Not to protect him from them, but to present him to them. She sat with her mane blazing gold and her head held high. And she called out again in those harmonic tones that the humans could not understand, but that spoke volumes to her. People, the great Kathrani at the front of the pride stepped forward until only the shimmering energy barrier separated her from the human and the cub. She was easily 3 times Marcus's size, with claws that could tear through the armored hull of a starship and teeth designed to crush bone. Mane shifted through colors too fast to follow, and her eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made him feel like his soul was being examined. You are the one, she said, and her voice came through a translator device that rendered her rumbling speech into heavily accented English. Marcus swallowed hard and nodded. I'm the one who found her, he said. I am the one who fed her. I am Shelvera, the Kathrani said, matriarch of the pride that hunts these lands. And the cub you call Ember is daughter of my fallen sister. Behind him, Marcus could hear Vasquez ordering soldiers to hold their fire and hold their positions. The Dominion shuttle rose into the air with a roar of engines and fled toward orbit, Rextel having abandoned the humans to whatever fate awaited them. Shelvera watched the shuttle go with what might have been contempt in her alien eyes. Your allies flee, she observed. They are not my allies. Marcus replied. They never were. Shelvera's mane flickered with colors he could not interpret. And then she lowered her massive head until her face was level with his. She inhaled deeply, and Marcus realized she was reading him the way he might read a written page. She was learning his chemical truth. You fed her when she was starving, Shelvera said. You healed her when she was broken. And you protected her when others said she was worthless. Yes. Marcus said simply, why? The question hung in the air between them. And Marcus knew that his answer might determine whether humanity found friends or enemies among the stars. He thought about his grandfather and the strays he had rescued. He thought about his mother and the way she had always made room at their table for anyone who was hungry. He thought about everything that made humans what they were, the good and the bad, the kindness and the cruelty, and he tried to find words that would explain it all. Because she was hungry, he finally said. Because she was hurt, and because it was the right thing to do. Shalvera was silent for a long moment, and her mane settled into a deep, steady gold that matched Ember's perfectly. The Dominion calls you weak for such feelings, she said. The Dominion, Marcus replied quietly, has never understood that strength without compassion is just cruelty with better weapons. Something changed in Shalvera's eyes then. Something ancient and profound that Marcus could feel even if he could not name it. She straightened to her full height and looked past him at the assembled human soldiers. At Commander Vasquez standing rigid with uncertainty. At the base that represented humanity's fragile foothold on an alien world. Then she did something that made every human present gasp in shock. She retracted her claws and extended her massive paw toward Marcus in what was unmistakably an offer of greeting. We came here to see what manner of creatures you humans truly are, she said. And now we know. Marcus reached out and placed his small human hand against her scaled palm. And he felt the warmth and the strength and the possibility of everything that moment represented behind him. Ember's mane blazed so bright it was almost blinding. The siege that never was had just become something else entirely. It had become a beginning. The Alliance by noon on that same day, everything that humanity thought it knew about its place in the galaxy had changed. Forever Commander Elena Vasquez sat across from Shalvera in the base's mess hall, surrounded by the most unlikely diplomatic gathering in the history of two species. The Kathrani matriarch had to crouch to fit beneath the ceiling, and her warriors lined the walls like living statues, their manes pulsing in soft colors as they watched the proceedings with ancient intelligent eyes. Dr. Yuki Tanaka had worked frantically to establish a proper translation system. And now every word could flow between human and Kathrani with only a slight delay. The coffee that Vasquez had offered was too small for Shalvera to hold. But the gesture of hospitality had not been lost on her. Your Dominion sponsors will not forgive what has happened here today, Shalvera said, her voice rumbling through the translator. They fled to tell their masters that you have allied with primitives. And that word will spread through their communications faster than we can imagine. Vasquez wrapped her hands around her own coffee cup and considered the weight of what the matriarch was saying. They were never really our sponsors, she admitted. They were our handlers. And humanity was useful to them as long as we stayed quiet and did what we were told. And now you have refused, Shalvera observed. Now we have made a choice, Vasquez corrected. A choice about who we want to be out here among the stars, in the corner of the mess hall. Marcus Cole sat with Ember curled around his feet, her mane pulsing with warm contentment as she listened to the beings around her discuss the future. Krathmer stood nearby, the massive war leader who had wanted to reject any possibility of trust between their peoples. And his mane now showed colors of thoughtful consideration rather than aggression. The Dominion has conquered 17 worlds, Krathmar said, speaking for the first time since entering the base. They have exterminated species and enslaved populations and burned civilizations to ash. And they have never faced serious resistance because they are too powerful and too unified. We know, Vasquez replied. We have seen their fleet, and we know what they are capable of. Then you understand what you are risking by standing with us. Krathmar pressed Vasquez, looked at the Kathrani warrior, and then at his matriarch, and then at the soldiers who served under her command, she thought about Earth and the billions of people who were counting on the Fire's Dominion Alliance to protect them. She thought about the messages she would have to send and the consequences that would follow. And then she thought about Marcus feeding a starving cub in the rain. And she knew that some choices were made long before the moment of decision arrived. "I understand," she said. "And I understand something else too." "What?" Shalvara asked. Vasquez leaned forward with intensity burning in her eyes. "The Dominion has never faced humanity and the Kathrani fighting together," she said. "They have never faced an alliance built on something other than fear and domination. And they have never faced species who protect each other because it is the right thing to." Shalvara's mane shifted through colors that the translator could not interpret. But her voice when she spoke was warm with something that might have been approval. "You truly believe this makes a difference?" she asked. "I believe it makes all the difference," Vasquez replied. "I believe that empires built on cruelty always fall eventually. And I believe that alliances built on mutual respect and compassion can endure things that raw power cannot." The mess hall was silent as the two leaders looked at each other across a divide of species and culture and biology. Then Shalvara extended her paw once more, just as she had done with Marcus at the perimeter gate. "The pride stands with humanity," she declared. "Not because we owe you a debt for saving Ember, though we do. And not because we fear the Dominion more than we trust you, though perhaps we should. But because you have shown us something we never expected to find among the stars." "What is that?" Vasquez asked as she placed her hand against the matriarch's palm. "Hope," Shalvara said simply. "High in orbit above Sigma Vega 4, the Dominion shuttle carrying." Rextal transmitted its panicked report to the nearest fleet command. The message described impossible events and terrible mistakes and demanded immediate military intervention to restore proper order to the colony. But the commanders who received that message did not react with the swift, decisive action that Rextal expected. Instead, they hesitated because the report also contained sensor data that showed 40 Kathrani warriors standing peacefully inside a human compound. It showed the apex predators of a world that the Dominion had spent years trying to pacify, now apparently allied with the weak and sentimental humans. It showed something that did not fit any of the Dominion's carefully constructed models of how lesser species were supposed to behave, and it made them wonder, for perhaps the first time, what else they might have gotten wrong back on the surface. As the twin suns of Sigma Vega 4 reached their peak in the purple sky, a celebration was beginning. Human soldiers and Kathrani warriors shared food and stories, learning each other's gestures and trying to bridge the gap between their very different ways of seeing the world. Dr. Tanaka was in deep conversation with several Kathrani hunters, exchanging knowledge about the biology and ecology of the planet that both species now shared. Commander Vasquez was already drafting messages to Earth, explaining what had happened and what it might mean for humanity's future. And Marcus Cole sat on the ground with Ember's head resting in his lap, watching everything unfold with quiet wonder. Krathmer approached him and stood looking down with an expression that Marcus could not read. "You changed everything," the war leader said. "One human with one act of kindness. And now the stars themselves must reconsider what they thought they knew." Marcus scratched behind Ember's ears the way she liked, and her mane glowed bright with happiness. "I just fed a hungry kid," he said. Krathmer made a sound that might have been laughter. "Yes," he agreed. "And that is exactly the point." He turned and walked away to join the celebration, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts and the cub who had become so much more than a rescue across the galaxy. In the great halls where the Dominion planned and plotted and controlled, urgent messages were flying between worried officials. The humans had done something unexpected. The primitives had done something impossible, and Nobody knew what would happen next, but Marcus knew that the galaxy was about to learn a lesson that humanity had learned long ago in its own troubled histories. The greatest power in the universe was not found in weapons or fleets or empires. It was found in the simple choice to be kind when cruelty was easier. It was found in the decision to protect the vulnerable when abandonment was safer. It was found in the courage to reach out a hand to a stranger and say without words that you would not let them suffer alone. They had laughed when a human fed a dying cub. They had mocked his sentiment and predicted his failure and dismissed his compassion as weakness. But now the laughter had stopped, and in its place, something new was rising, something that would shake the foundations of everything the Dominion believed, something called hope, and it had started with a sergeant from Montana, a starving cub in the rain, and a handful of nutrient paste offered without expectation of return. That was the human way. And now the galaxy would never be the same.